Good afternoon. My name is John Coetzee, and it's my pleasure and privilege today to introduce Anna Enquist, the distinguished poet and novelist from the Netherlands, who is on her first visit to Australia. A few words about Anna Enquist's literary career. After her schooling, she pursued studies in both psychology at the University of Leiden and music, specifically piano and cello, at the Hague Conservatoire. Thereafter, she trained and practiced as a psychoanalyst. Her career as a writer began only when she was in her 40s. First came poems, then a novel called The Masterpiece, published in 1994. The Masterpiece has been followed by 4 more novels: The Secret, The Ice Carriers, Homecoming, and in 2008, Counterpoint. There have also been several volumes of poetry as well as theatre-related work. In the United States, the entire body of Anna's fiction has been brought out in English translation by the enterprising small publisher Toby Press. And just a few minutes ago, I was informed that Toby Press is in fact no more. So the only publisher in the English-speaking world of Anna's work is the University of Western Australia Press, which brings out Counterpoint this year and is going to bring out the rest of her work in due course. Anna Enquist's work, both poetry and prose, has met with a warm response from the Dutch public and has been awarded a number of literary prizes. She's been translated into German, French, and other European languages, as well as Hebrew. Counterpoint, from which Anna will read this afternoon, is representative of her work in general in its integral use of music, as well as in the complexity and, I may add, the deep empathy of its psychological insights. I won't say any more for the moment about this remarkable and heartbreaking novel, but I will ask Anna herself to present it to you and read from it. After she's finished her presentation, there will be time for questions from the audience, and we'll terminate proceedings at 6 o'clock. So let me ask Anna to step forward.
Well, thank you, John, for your kind and nice presentation. Good afternoon. I'll begin with excusing myself for my language. I do the best I can. I thought it is a good idea to talk to you a bit first about how I became a writer, and then the next part of the reading I will talk about this book, Counterpoint. I never wanted to be a writer as a child. Although I was an avid reader, I always wanted to be a pianist. But in the Netherlands, just after the war, in the 50s, it was not considered a good idea to become a musician. If you had brains, you had to go to university. And, well, I listened to my teachers and my parents, and I went to university and studied psychology. But when I took my degree, I thought, now I will take my life in my own hands. And I took a part-time job as a psychologist and went to take the entrance examination for the conservatory. I wanted to become a very old pianist. And this was a very good decision. It is the education I like the most of all the things I've done. And the things I learned in this music education are the things that help me with my writing. So I studied there, and after I took my final piano examination, they asked me to be a member of their staff as a school psychologist and a psychology teacher. You know, you had to teach the students how to study and how to overcome their fear of playing and all things more. Well, I did that for quite a number of years, but I realized that I didn't have a real psychotherapy training. So I started to do the psychoanalytical training. That's a very heavy training that takes a lot of time. But I pursued those studies. And then at a certain moment, the Psychoanalytical Institute asked me to become a member of their staff. And then at that moment I thought, now I have to be an adult woman and do one thing at a time. Not playing the piano and working, but just being a psychoanalyst. It was very difficult to keep my level of piano playing up at that time because I had two small children, family, a full-time job, this psychoanalytical training. So my level went down and down and down, and I was not very good with that. So I closed the piano and became only a psychoanalyst. But then, in the night, I started to write poems. I thought, well, it has to be so. I am someone who has to do two things at a time. And I published the poems, and what I'm saying now sounds like bragging, but it's just how it went. They were very successful, and the publisher published one volume after another, and I thought, this is strange. Now I am doing something that I have had no education, no training for, and it's the most successful thing I've ever done. So I thought, well, perhaps it's possible to write a novel also. And I always have been very fascinated by Mozart's opera Don Giovanni. So I started to write a modern version of the Don Giovanni opera, with the same characters, but, well, translated to modern times. And that became the masterpiece. After that, I wrote a novel about a pianist, because I was, of course, missing playing the piano very much. So I liked it to look at all those old pieces and write a story about someone who is playing them. Around that time, I made a walk in England, and I was in a small museum devoted to Captain James Cook. I bought a book about him, I read it, and I was sold. This was someone I wanted to write about. So I began reading books and buying books about him, and, well, I planned to write a big historical novel about Captain Cook and his family. Only I didn't have any time, because I had a full-time job as a psychoanalyst, and I was giving lectures and writing poems, and so I didn't have any time at all. About these lectures, I did lectures such as these, but I met a former pupil from the conservatory, a pianist, and he became a friend of mine. And I started to make musical programs in which I read my texts, and I had picked out piano music, which he played, and I placed my text into the music, and, well, that became kind of theatrical musical programs that we performed over the whole country. So I was away a lot of evenings reading and he playing for audiences such as these. That were the things I did. As John told you, my novels were published in a lot of other countries, so I often had to go away on reading tours, and, well, time became a problem again. around that time the children were adults and had completed their studies. And I thought, perhaps it is time for me to become a whole-time writer. So I quit my job as a psychoanalyst, and my husband made a beautiful room for me to write in. And, well, I started out my career as a writer. Exactly at that time, I got... I had to write the yearly gift novel. In Holland, we have a thing that's called the Book Week. And in that week, everyone who buys a book gets, as a present, a small novel written each year by a different novelist. And that year, they had asked me to write it. And that book became The Ice Carriers. It's a novel set in a psychiatric hospital. So I started out in my new room with lots of time, ample time, and wrote these Ice Carriers. Well, what I have to tell you now is something terrible, but I think I have to speak about it because otherwise you can't understand this novel, Counterpoint. As I completed The Ice Carriers, it was in the summer, our daughter died in a traffic accident. She was 27 years of age. I will speak now only about how this disaster affected my writing, because I'm here as a writer. Well, you can understand that the first time I couldn't write at all. And the strange thing is that in those first months, I played the piano again. I hadn't done that in some 15 years, but I played the piano again. I think because being a pianist was something I did before I had any children, and also because playing the piano, making actively music, is a very good thing for body and for the soul. So that's what I did, and I also continued the theatrical readings with a pianist. He's called Ivo Jansen, and he plays beautiful the Goldberg variations. And when you buy Counterpoint, you get a free copy of his CD of these Goldberg variations. So we toured the country. We sat in the car and talked about piano music. And I often asked him, what piece shall I undertake now? And then no, I'm telling it wrong. First, I just studied piano and was thinking about I have to fill my days. And all those books about Captain Cook were in my book cases. And I thought, well, perhaps I can just sit down and write this historical novel because it's 2 centuries ago. It is about people that really have existed. I have to keep to history, and that's a good thing to do. It is not about my life. It is about Captain Cook, far away from what I am experiencing. So I started on the Captain Cook novel, and it became The Homecoming. I think the publishing house here will bring it out next year. But all the time I really wanted to write about our daughter, and it was an urge to do that, but I didn't know how. I couldn't conceive of a way to write about such a thing without being sentimental or without having an outpouring of emotions. I didn't want that at all. And then one of these nights, Ivo said to me, why don't you study the Goldberg variations again? I had studied them in the 80s. But I thought, well, this is a good idea. It's variations are very good. Short pieces, you can really complete something in a session and move to the next one the next day. So I started to practice these Goldberg variations again, and then in a moment I knew this is the way to write a book about our daughter. I thought each variation has its own character, and I can make a book of small fragments of the life of a girl, from birth to the end. Not chronologically, but according to the character of the variation. So I started to write this book, and at the same time I practiced the variations. And for me that was a very good thing to do, because when I was stuck in the writing, I sat down at the piano. When I was tired of piano playing, I sat down at the writing desk, and everything came together. My love of music and my love of writing, it was one river of creativity. Well, it sounds very sentimental, but I think it's a good way to describe this process. So now I can tell you a bit about counterpoint. I borrowed Bach's structure. The Goldberg variations consist of an area, 30 variations on it, and then the same area again. So the book has 32 chapters. There is a storyline in the book about a woman, you could say the writer, who is practicing these variations. And in each chapter she tells about a difficulty she encounters. You know, the Goldberg variations are composed for a cembalo with 2 manuals. So you can play something here and something and the other musical line under that. But on a grand piano, you only have 1 keyboard. So the hands, they oppose each other. You have to find solutions for all kinds of practical things. So you see the protagonist of the novel busy with such kind of problems. You also read about her thinking about the translation of Baroque music to modern times, about the life of Bach, about all kinds of musical things. And as a reader, you get the feeling, why is this woman so obsessively practicing? What's the matter with her? But, well, you don't know. At the same time, as I said, each chapter, each variation has a small portrait of some scenes out of the life of a girl. Of course, the loss of a child is something that happens to me, to us. But the novel is a constructed work. It is not an autobiographical thing per se, but it's constructed, it's thought up. I made it. As I progressed in these variations, the end of the book came in sight. And I thought that was very difficult. I couldn't think of a way of describing the girl's death. So I sat at my desk in this beautiful writing room and browsed through the volumes I had about Bach and his life. I made up a new chronology of his life, and then I made a very strange discovery. You know perhaps the history of the Goldberg variations. And the story is that Bach wrote them for a count who couldn't sleep, and this count said in the middle of the night to someone, play my variations, and they were so boring that he fell asleep. But I discovered something that was not like this at all. I discovered that, Bach had 4 children out of his first marriage. The 2 oldest boys you undoubtedly know, Carl Philipp Emanuel and Friedemann. But there was a younger boy called Bernard, who was also from this first marriage and had lost his mother at quite a young age. And this was a difficult boy. He ran away from home. He was also, like all Bach's children, very musical. But he ran away. He didn't want to do what his father wanted. And the family didn't hear of him for a year. And then came the message that this boy had died. The year was 1739. And in that same year, 1739, Bach started to write his Goldberg variations. So for me it was, a real discovery that this music was linked with the loss of a child for Bach. And it was for me also, as a novelist, a solution, because I could describe the loss of this son, this wayward son of Bach, in detail, and how Bach reacted, and I could keep the story about my own child quite formal and short.